为两个字真的是这样写了，我跟你说，以为两个字，真的以为。
Jesus allegedly suffered during his crucifixion, holes in his wrists, a lance wound to his side, and puncture wounds to his forehead. To DeCharny, this is more than mere coincidence. The knight is convinced this is the burial shroud which enveloped the bloody, crucified body of Jesus Christ. Joffrey spirits the fabric out of Constantinople to Lyre Church in France, believing he has recovered the holiest relic in all of Christianity. Despite doubts about the fabric's authenticity, thousands of Christians make the pilgrimage to view what they believe is the image of Jesus. But in 1532, a fire nearly destroys it. The flames are so hot that it melts part of the silver container where the shroud is kept. The sacred relic is then moved to the safety of the Catholic Church's Turin Cathedral, where it becomes known as the Turin Shroud. For the next 400 years, scholars around the world are captivated by one question: is the shroud real or fake? In the 1980s, advances in radiocarbon dating technology give Vatican officials the opportunity to confirm the shroud's authenticity once and for all. Scientists get permission to remove a piece of the shroud's fabric for carbon-14 testing. Will the ancient mystery of the shroud finally be solved? On October 13, 1988, at a press conference at the British Museum, the world learns the truth. Radiocarbon dating conducted on the fabric sample indicates the shroud was created between 1260 and 1390 AD. That's over 1,200 years after the death of Jesus. For the faithful, the results call into question the authenticity of the artifact. Yet for others, the findings raise an intriguing question. If it's not Jesus, who is the mysterious figure depicted on the shroud? Some have argued that the shroud in fact captures a soldier from the late Crusades who was crucified in the same manner as Jesus centuries after he died. This was said to have been done to warn off Christian invaders. If you come to the Holy Land, you will suffer the same fate as your Lord Jesus. And there were even more sensational theories. Some scholars have proposed that the shroud was made by artist and inventor Leonardo da Vinci, asserting the face in the shroud perfectly matches the one depicted in Da Vinci's famous painting, the Salvator Mundi. But some experts who analyze the ancient artifact still see compelling signs that the shroud is real. They claim the evidence can be found in the fabric's markings. Close inspection of the shroud reveals the image is embedded in the fibers, not painted on the surface, which would likely appear in a forgery. Some have argued that the image is impossible to replicate and was likely created by a powerful burst of ultraviolet light or electromagnetic radiation, beyond the capabilities of any technology at the time of Christ. Experts demand new tests to confirm or dispute the 1988 radiocarbon dating. Yet the Vatican refuses to provide any more access to the shroud. Could one of the most powerful religious organizations on Earth be hiding something? In 2022, archaeologist William Meacham discovers 5 pieces of fabric cut from the shroud during the 1988 testing and submits the strands to the Stable Isotopes Laboratory at the University of Hong Kong. Testing the composition of the strands can uncover their geographic origin, determining exactly where in the world the shroud came from, and when the results are revealed, they are stunning. Historian Joe Marino, one of the foremost experts on the shroud, has studied the isotopic results.
This test was one of the most compelling pieces of evidence I've seen, especially for the 20th and 21st century. The reason is because the Shroud of Turin is made of flax fibers. And isotope testing can indicate where the flax had originally been grown. And the results revealed that it came from, Israel, Lebanon, and the western parts of Syria. So when I saw the results, I was just absolutely captivated.
For believers, this is the best news possible. The shroud comes from the same place that Jesus lived and died. And groundbreaking new findings might finally provide the identity of the image on the shroud. For centuries, the Shroud of Turin has inspired millions, while also inspiring a tantalizing question: is it real? New scientific findings may confirm that the shroud came from the same place where Jesus was buried. But even if the shroud was made in the Holy Land, carbon-14 testing indicates the fabric was created over 1,000 years after Christ's death. However, Joe Marino believes there are major flaws with the 1988 radiocarbon test results.
I felt that something had to be wrong with that carbon-14 test because it just did not match with the data accumulated. And in all scientific experiments, when a test is done, labs are supposed to release what's called the raw data, meaning all the data that they worked with and what they used to come to their conclusions. People asked the British Museum for the raw data, but they wouldn't release it.
Even more intriguing, recent analysis of bacteria found on the shroud may raise further questions about the accuracy of the carbon-14 dating.
If the shroud's authentic, it's been in the open for approximately 2,000 years and obviously would accumulate a lot of debris on it and environmental factors, mold, mildew, skin cells, so it's not really well suited for carbon-14. And the dating of the linen could be 1,000 years off.
And photographic analysis of the shroud dating back to 1978 provides even more possible evidence of its authenticity.
When the scientists put the picture of the face in the image analyzer, they saw over both eyes what appeared to be buttons or possibly coins. And coins were used in the Jewish burial customs of that period in which Jesus lived. And they would put coins on the eyes to keep them from seeing the afterlife until they got there.
Further analysis of the shroud images reveals the coins placed over the eyes are pilot leptons, small bronze coins minted only between 29 and 32 AD, linking the artifacts to the era in which Jesus is believed to have lived and died.
Jesus was believed to be, by most scholars, to have been crucified in either 30 or 33. So the fact that this coin is actually there and it was in use at the time, that's about as much evidence as you could get that the shroud could be authentic. You know, if I were a betting man, I'd bet every dollar I ever had and ever will have that it's authentic.
After all this new evidence, many feel validated that the shroud is the real deal. Has science really come to the rescue of belief? Well, not so fast. Critics would argue that the radiocarbon dating undertaken in the 80s was comprehensive and accurate. And even if the shroud is genuine, it raises another question. Is this what Jesus even looked like? Historical and archaeological evidence suggests that someone from that region at that time may have looked very different from the image we've come to associate with Christ. After almost 1,000 years of controversy, perhaps the only thing we can truly be certain of is that the debate between holy relic or holy hoax is sure to continue. Welcome to the trial of the century, the 19th century, that is. It is 1869, and that man on the stand is fighting for his life, or actually, maybe afterlife would be more appropriate. He is William Lundy, a photographer, and his pictures have captivated America because he swears he's able to photograph ghosts. Today, the state of New York is prosecuting him as a fraud, but Munro will vow to the very end that his photos are real. So, could he really have been the paparazzi of the paranormal? Well, in 150 years And Mumler, the owner of a Boston-based engraving studio, has dipped his toe into family portraiture. Taking pictures is not the take-it-for-granted, pull-out your smartphone to capture every moment that it is today. In 1861, photography is still in its infancy. The process of taking a single photograph is labor-intensive, often requiring the subject to sit for several minutes while the plate or film is exposed to light. And in this case, the subject is Mumler himself. Mumler poses for a self-portrait. And as the story goes, after developing the plate, he notices something very strange. Having been all alone in the studio, Mumler is amazed to see there, sitting in a chair next to him, a young girl. The chair visible through her almost transparent body. According to Mumler, he's confused. He thinks he must have made a mistake somehow. He's just started photography after all. This isn't even his studio. It's his girlfriend's, Hannah Stewart. But Hannah isn't confused. She's fascinated because Hannah deals in the dead. She's involved in a new religious movement called spiritualism that believes the living can interact with the dead. So when Hannah sees Mumler's photo, she immediately knows what she's looking at. The girl in the chair is a spirit. Mumler looks at it in shock, then realizes something remarkable. The girl does look a lot like his long-dead cousin. Through Hannah's contacts, Mumler's photo gets reprinted in the popular spiritualist publication Banner of Light, and the community embraces Mumler's photo as the first picture of a ghost ever captured. Mumler vows that he can't explain what's happening, and that he's just as astonished as everyone else by this haunting photo. Keep in mind that in 1861, the Civil War is in its bloody beginnings. Thousands of men are dying, which means many passionately believe there are thousands of ghosts that need contacting. But can Mumler capture additional spirits in his photos? And will these same ghosts end up haunting him in the end? In 1861, as the nation mourns its losses in the Civil War, photographer William Mumler seems to capture the ghost of a deceased girl with his camera. He soon discovers that this is a recurring phenomenon, and after sessions with other customers, the resulting photos continue to reveal the spirit images of people's dead relations. Word of Mumler's amazing ability to connect with the dead spreads like wildfire. Suddenly, there are lines out the door at Hannah Stewart's little photography shop. Mumler is able to replicate his process again and again, capturing so-called spirits for customer after customer. With business booming, Mumler charges an outrageous $10 per photo, or about $350 today. Mumler is becoming rich, and as the most famous spirit photographer in the world, it starts putting him in touch with higher-class customers. As William Mumler's business grows, so does spiritualism, the movement that embraces him. But spiritualism does have its detractors, particularly Christianity. Many Christians are horrified by who they view as godless spiritualists, and are determined to prove that men like Mumler are frauds. One person that tries to debunk Mumler is expert photographer James Wallace Black. But when Black arrives at the studio to investigate, Mumler is all too happy to allow Black to observe his process. He has nothing to hide. As he takes Black's photograph, he shows him the plate and includes him in every step of the process.
So you're using mercury in your development process.
Helps develop the highlights. That's where I find the ghosts.
Upon developing the photograph, Mumler lets Black watch as a translucent figure appears in all its ghostly glory next to the bewildered expert. Even the people trying to discredit him begrudgingly begin to admit that he may be the real deal. All the while, Mumler swears that he has nothing to hide. He claims to simply remove the lens cap and expose the photo, having no other insight into the miraculous starts to take things further. A visit to his studio is no longer just point and shoot. It now also includes a seance to summon the spirits, at an extra cost to his customers. If a ghost shows up, it may announce its presence by rapping on a table, wall, or floor. Sometimes the camera levitates, or a table tips over. The customers completely buy into it. But the spiritualists who supported him start to turn on him, smelling a possible huckster who makes their whole movement seem fake. Mumler doesn't care if he's lost the support of the spiritualists. Everyone's efforts to prove that he's a fraud has so far failed. Plus, he's made a pile of money. But there is one problem. Mumler is running out of customers in Boston. All the bad publicity is taking its toll. So William and his now wife Hannah Stewart Mumler leave Boston behind and set up shop in New York City. And are immediately the toast of the town.
Thank you so much for coming. Right this way.
The hoi polloi flood to the new studio, and Mumler churns out one ghost photograph after another.
Okay, this could take some time, so you want to sit very still and sit up.
But Mumler's prolific output attracts the ire of New York's mayor, Abraham Oki, whose political opponents are mostly spiritualists. Nothing would make Oki happier than to reveal the spiritualist community as charlatans.
Sir, we're ready for you.
It's not long before a sting is set up. An NYPD officer, J.H. Tooker, drops by Mumler's studio undercover. Mumler photographs Tooker and claims that the ghost appearing next to him is the policeman's father-in-law. Not recognizing the apparition as his father-in-law, Tooker arrests Mumler on the spot, charging him with fraud. Suddenly, Mumler's entire life is at stake. He's now accused of being a fake by the legal system and facing prison. Which brings us to April 21st, 1869, when the trial begins. The prosecution needs to prove that the ghosts in Mumler's photos are entirely created by the photographer. But when Tooker takes the stand, he is forced to admit that he never met his father-in-law, and so there is a possibility that it's him. The trial is a circus, and becomes more so when the renowned promoter of hoaxes, P.T. Barnum, testifies against Mumler. But Barnum's testimony falls apart when he can't definitively confirm that Mumler's ghosts are made using fraudulent techniques. Others testify against Mumler, also saying that he's a fraud, but no one can prove how he did it. So, the jury finds him not guilty. On May 5th, 1869, William Mumler walks free. The city of New York has not been able to disprove that he is a bona fide photographer of ghosts. But it isn't a complete victory for Mumler, as the trial has left him in financial ruin and his reputation is destroyed. He's forced to close up his shop and return to Boston. By 1879, Mumler stops taking spirit photographs altogether. Not long after, his wife leaves him, and he dies in 1884, destitute and alone. So, what's the truth behind Mumler's methods? Did he perpetrate a massive fraud? Or can the impossible really be true? Were the ghosts real? Now, some picture-perfect insights may explain it all. At the dawn of photography, William Mumler becomes instantly famous for photographing ghosts, but no one was able to explain how he did it. Now, 150 years later, historian Brandon Hodge, who has studied the spiritual movement extensively, believes he can explain how Mumler was able to pull this off with his clients, both emotionally and practically.
Mumler was able to fool the nation because he engaged in some subtle sleight of hand. And this was at a day and age when communion with spirits was thought to be not only possible, but practical through the spiritualist movement. Mumler's photography comes at a crucial time when spiritualists are seeking to claim a sort of scientific legitimacy, and Mumler's results are able to provide what they think is tangible evidence of that at a time when the nation is already in deep mourning with the American Civil War. And so this was just seen as yet further proof of the validity of the spiritualist claims.
But even if Mumler was fraudulently taking advantage of people's desperation to believe, it doesn't explain how he tricked the masses, including leading photography experts.
James Wallace Black, himself a famous photographer in his own right, he was unable at the end to explain how the image had appeared on film. While Mumler's exact methods were never conclusively proven, during these long exposure times, one of Mumler's methods may have been pre-exposure of the plate, where only brief exposure of a subject possibly dressed in a shroud or as a ghost would be exposed to the plate. That plate would then be set aside, and when the next subject arrived, it would be inserted.
Stop it ah.
And once the subject sat for several
Stop the
minutes,
childish
without
law, ah.
exposure, the end result would show them fully formed as well as this ghostly image.
It's incredible to think Mumler's talents may have been less spiritual medium and more street magician. A street magician taking advantage of a grieving nation. But is it fair to write off Mumler so completely? For instance, consider this photograph, which William Mumler took in 1872 for someone who gave the name Mrs. Lindahl. Mumler took her picture, and it was only after developing it that he realized she had given a fake name. Mrs. Lindahl was in fact Mary Todd Lincoln. And if Mumler really didn't know that, how did this very familiar figure appear behind the former First Lady? Chills, anyone? Whatever you may think about Mumler's methods, his work really is haunting. From photographs from the beyond, our next case file takes us to a monument that is beyond belief. It is June of 1979, and I'm standing on 5 acres of empty farmland outside of Elberton, Georgia. A mystery man has just bought this land for $5,000. He goes by Robert C. Christian, but that is not his real name. And he's not a farmer or a rancher, as you might expect. No, he has much bigger and stranger plans for this land. R.C. Christian wants to build America's Stonehenge. Right here, a huge granite monument with 10 principles for the future of humanity carved into it. The monument will be built, and mystery and controversy will surround it for decades. And now, for the very first time, we can reveal the secrets of perhaps America's strangest object, the unsettling monument known as the Georgia Guidestones. On a late afternoon in June 1970,